There we go. Okay. So we've got this recording. I'm going to copy this invite link for anyone that cannot view this, for anyone having trouble viewing the live stream. You can join the webinar directly here. We'll put that in there. Oh, and it failed to post a comment. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, it must be Friday morning. There is something with LinkedIn's streaming service. So in order to go live on LinkedIn, it won't let you simply do a live thing. You have to set up this intermediary kind of process, and then you have to jump through all of these hoops. And I've set it up 3 different ways, and it works half the time each time. And so for anyone that's ever worked in software, this is the absolute worst situation where there's nothing worse than when you make some change over here and then this thing over here seems to suddenly start working. And you're like, oh dear God, like I didn't think this was going to be connected to that at all. What have I done? Why is this working? It makes it really impossible to troubleshoot. So my sincere apologies to anyone that's tuned in. I imagine it's quite frustrating that you come, the live stream doesn't work. You come, the live stream doesn't work. So I'll be really taking a deep look in to see if this even makes sense to try to do it this way. What we might do is just post a link every month to join this way, rather than trying to push it out live to LinkedIn, because it's a bit of a pain trying to get it to work for me, and I imagine for anyone that's tuning in or trying to tune in live, it's a bit frustrating as well, because you can't watch what you came to watch. That'd be annoying for me. So anyhow, thank you everyone who's hung out and who's, oh, it looks like it might be coming through, so that's good. I'm just going to mute this tab. So perhaps it is working live on LinkedIn, and if that's the case, amazing. Let's get started. We're through the initial part. I'm gonna have a sip of tea here, and I'm gonna refill my tea. That's a very important part of this. You can hear me pouring the tea both into my teacup as well as onto my lap and on the floor. That is not made up. I literally have tea on my jeans now. So that's how this Friday is starting off. I'm really excited today. What we're going to be discussing, as we've been doing all month in the Ontological Leadership Network, is the concept of possibility. And this is arguably one of the most important concepts in coaching and leadership, and probably one of the most poorly understood. And what we're going to do is I'm going to briefly explain why it's so important, why it's poorly understood, and then we've got a guest today, Kacie, who I'm gonna work with, and we'll create possibility together in that conversation, and I'll be helping you see why it's challenging. So the reason possibility is so important. Well, before we get there, we're going to define it quickly, and then we'll talk about why it's important, and then we'll talk about why it's so misunderstood. So possibility is kind of everything that I might want that's outside of the boundary of what I know how to get. Or maybe put even better, it's everything that I want outside of the boundary of what I know is possible for me to achieve. So all of us have a worldview, like a perspective that says I can do X, Y, and Z in this amount of time, or I can make that happen, but that's out of my range, or whatever it happens to be. All of us have this. And some people will resist that. They'll say things like, no, not me. I believe anything's possible. And they kind of are willing to believe, like they'll believe that in an airy fairy nebulous kind of way. But as soon as you ask them to take put some committed action towards it, very quickly their belief becomes vapor. It filters away very quickly. And this is the nature of this kind of thing. So its possibility really shows itself, and our access to possibility reveals itself when we're asked to like take action towards that thing. And very quickly we're like, hell no. I mean, it's nice as an idea, but what I really need to do is spend 5 more years here rather than trying to become a consultant this year or whatever it happens to be. So anytime we sit down with someone and say, what do you want? Every single one of us, when asked that question, might kind of think about like, well, what would I love? Hold on, let's reframe this hypothetical. Let's say that you sat down and and I asked you, what do you want that you would be willing to commit to achieving in a year's time? So your commitment has to be a part of this. What you're going to naturally ask for is what you think is possible for you within a year's time to achieve. Like, so that'll be like the entire list of things that you can kind of figure out how you could get there, even if it would be hard work. Maybe it's losing some weight. Maybe it's making some more money. Maybe it's getting a raise. Maybe it's getting a new job. Maybe it's getting a different relationship, whatever it happens to be. But we're unwittingly and automatically going to ask for something that exists inside this sort of field, this sphere, if you like, of stuff that we can figure out how to get to. Possibilities, everything outside of that. So as humans, we don't look towards possibility. We look towards what's available, what's predictable for us, what we know how to get. And that's fine. Everything inside of what we know how to get is stuff that we can already achieve under our own strength. We don't require any external support. We can already figure out how to get there one way or the other. And this is the domain in which most of us play most of our lives. Um, if you know, like I have good friends that are working jobs and they have a vision to leave that job and in X amount of years' time to do something different. They don't really love their job as much as the thing that they want to leave their job for. That's why they have this plan. But they have this plan that is spaced out for X number of years. And what they would love to be able to do is to like leave their job tomorrow and do the thing that they really want to do today. But they don't believe that's possible. So they're not going to create that. Let's take a sip of tea at this point. So what happens is we set goals and visions and dreams. Even when we're asked to set a big, hairy, audacious goal, we set them in such a way that they're within the field of what we can reach for, what we can achieve under our own steam. Another way to put this is that we set goals for ourselves that don't require some kind of fundamental breakthrough in us. Goals that we can figure out how to get to without having to like transform the way we show up in the world, because none of that occurs to us. We can't see that as a possibility. I would never have set a goal for myself to be in a career that's fundamentally entrepreneurialism and that requires marketing, because I had a vision of me being a sort of person that just couldn't market, couldn't go to people and ask them for things. So there was no way that what I do now was in the realm of possibility. So most of us stay in that realm of predictability, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it also, what it means is that we're kind of in a way protected from ever having to create breakthroughs, because there's nothing requiring us to. There's no fundamental need. Everything we want, we can achieve without creating any kind of shift internally. So that's very comfortable. Not bad, comfortable. As a coach and a leader, the people that come to you, that you talk to, are going to kind of tell you they're here. You're going to ask them, like, what are you here for? Like, why are we talking? And they're going to tell you some kind of answer, like a goal that they want that's inside of the realm of what's predictable. And what happens is people start working with a coach, but because the thing they're going after does not require any shift, they don't really need the coach. The coach makes them feel good. You know, maybe they get a pep talk or something like that. But the goal they're going after, they're actually reliable to achieve under their own steam anyhow. And as a result, it's only a matter of time before the coaching becomes kind of irrelevant. It kind of become, they're like, yeah, I was feeling bad, but you know, now I'm not feeling so bad. And so it's good. You're a great coach and I really love you and thank you for all your help, but now it's time for me to move on. This is similar to like pseudoscientific cures for like diseases and stuff like that. What happens is people seek help when a symptom they're experiencing is at its height, when it's at its most acute. And naturally, over time, our symptoms are kind of like a sine wave. They'll regress. It's called the regression towards the mean. So whatever symptoms we're feeling will come down to a sort of midpoint. So what happens is we seek out cures when our symptoms are at their most acute. And then naturally, those symptoms are going to just gradually come down. And that's the point. Because we sought out this pseudoscientific cure at the height of our symptom, we're like, oh my goodness, it's working. But then sure enough, it starts to go back up. So a lot of the coaching in the world, because it's not operating in the realm of the possibility, it's very similar to this. People seek out the coach when they're like, things feel messy, or I'm frustrated with life, or things don't feel good, which will happen no matter what you're doing. That's just a part of being alive. They'll start working with the coach. They're going to keep going to the results they're already reliable to get anyhow. Their mood kind of regresses towards the mean, and then they're like, I don't think I actually need this coaching. I don't think I have much to bring to the coach. I don't think I'm actually getting that much. It's not really worth it. The same is true for leadership. So the reason possibility is so crucial in fields where we're talking about transformation is because possibility is sort of like best described as a goal that you will not be able to achieve on your own terms. You will not be able to achieve a goal that is in the realm of possibility doing things the way you've done them before. And the bad news is you're going to try. If you're really aiming for possibility, your natural human tendency will be to look to the stuff you've done in the past and use that to get to where you're trying to go. And so the way we tend to work with this is we try to do what we've always done before, only better, harder, faster, and stronger. Okay, I got these tools. I got to do it more. And usually what happens if we're really going towards something that's in the realm of possibility, it won't work. In math, we have a concept called an asymptote. So you have this, if you graph the x squared, which is on the graph, it looks like a line like this. And there's a line called an asymptote, which is a diagonal line. And the asymptote is this line that no matter how big you make x, it'll never cross this diagonal line. It's an asymptote. It's a line that you cannot cross. And so trying to use our existing, the strategies we already know, the tools we already have, the ways of being we already know to use, trying to use that to create a result that's truly in the realm of possibility is asymptotic. We will never get there from here. That's disheartening at first. But when you look at it through the lens of transformation, it's really amazing, because what it does is it sets a spear in the sand. It sets a stake for you to walk to that demands your transformation. It says if you are really committed to this goal, then you are going to have to fundamentally shift who you be. There's going to have to be a fundamental transformation or breakthrough in terms of the way you show up, the way you experience yourself, the way you exist in order to create this. And so goals in the realm of possibility are really a beautiful thing because they call forward our transformation. A lot of coaching and a lot of leadership doesn't do anything like this. What we do is we set safe goals because that's what we know to do. And then people go towards it. It doesn't require any shift. And then the coaching, the leadership really ends up being more like sort of cheerleading, back patting. There's no real transformation because there's no real stake in the game that would demand transformation. And transformation will not happen absent like an urgent need for it to happen. You don't start doing something radically different. You don't start radically shifting your perspective of yourself and the world around you and go through the breakdowns that are required to create that breakthrough just cuz. That's not the way it works. It's too kind of like traumatic an event. The transformation's too costly without a good enough reason. A better way to put it is, it's kind of like I believe the second law of motion. An object in a particular state of motion will stay in that state of motion absent something else pushing against it. So as humans, we have a way we know to be, a way we know to show up, a way we know to live, a way that things get done. And unless there's a reason to do them differently, we won't do them differently. Despite thinking or having like a loose desire, like, well, I'd like things to be a bit different. That's not sufficient. Your fear will hold you. Thank you. Your fear will hold you in the pattern you're in. So that's why possibility is important. Let's talk about, I'm going to take some tea. We're going to talk briefly about why it's elusive, and then we're going to bring Kacie on. So possibilities elusive. Oh, that's nice. It sounds like we've got a truck backing up for you. This is fun sound effects that I've got in my studio here. So the reason possibility is elusive is because we don't see any of this. None of this occurs like an actual border or boundary between our desires and what we actually go after. We don't see um, the way we've learned to be as sort of like a wall or a barrier. We see it kind of like just the way things are. We don't see our beliefs as beliefs projected into the world. We see them as the facts of reality. So um, I'm trying to think of an example here. If I have a story that you have to work hard to make money, first of all, that doesn't occur like a story to me. That occurs like reality. I will have created a reality that's matched and in alignment with my story, meaning I will probably have found my way into a job that rewards me for working hard. I will probably be surrounded with friends and family and people that agree with that story. And I will also have like a subset of people that don't work very hard and have a bunch of money that I will kind of have some version of like some way to kind of make that okay. By which I mean, oh, these people aren't working that hard and they have a lot of money. They lucked out, or they're thieves, or they're trust fund kids, or some version of that, right? But they're an exception to the rule. And the rule is you got to work hard to make money. I am not from that story. First of all, that's going to occur to me as reality. And second, if you say, Adam, what do you want? I'm not going to tell you, oh, what I really want is to work half as much and make 3 times as much. I'm not going to do that because it's out of alignment with my belief about how the world is. And that doesn't occur to me like a belief about how the world is, and I could just shift that belief and put a new belief. It occurs like objective reality. And so that makes possibility very elusive. It's not that we see this line and say, I'm going to stop right in front of that line. It's that we can't conceive of something beyond that boundary. We literally just don't even see that there is a boundary there. We're not aware of it. It's a lot like that metaphor of how you leash an elephant. You put a leash on it when it's a baby, and then it can't pull. And then as it grows, it just realizes, it learns, I can't pull. And so then it becomes this full grown elephant. It could easily rip the stake out of the ground, but it's got this leash on that's been there since it's a child. And that leash it exists in its mind as, I cannot pull this out. And therefore it stays stuck. So that's how all of our context, our worldviews, our self-belief, our perspectives, all of that kind of exists for us. You can see my dog in the window here. I've got my cajon there blocking him so he can't come in because he likes to kick open my door, and then I get a bunch of background noise. Okay. So this concept is probably better illustrated in the moment rather than talked about to death, because it is a bit nebulous. So what we're going to do is, in just a moment, I'm going to bring Kacie on. Kacie had listened to my podcast and said, hey, I was listening to one of your episodes where you were coaching someone, and you said, if anyone wants to coach, let me know. And so I'm letting you know. So I was stoked because I had this episode set up for us, and I needed someone to basically be in a possibility conversation. So Kacie, why don't you get your mic, turn your mic on, turn on your video. Let's get you in here. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. We are normal humans.
Yes.
We are not aliens pretending we are humans. This is a greeting. How are you doing?
I am doing great.
Cool.
Yes.
How was all that to sit there and just sit quietly for the first part?
It's fascinating. I love learning about everything that you're teaching. I'm sitting here wondering, what is that wall for me? What is that possibility that I'm not seeing?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's so great. I remember when I first ever like began this work, some of my mentors, now teachers in the past, I guess, said, can we work with you? And I was like, sure. But I was wondering, like, what could be left? Like, what else could there be to show me? Because I've been reading books about this stuff since I was a kid. And it's funny to me because our mind always tries to, like, okay, let's figure it out. Like, what's the thing? But of course, our mind is inside the same box we are. Can't see beyond it. So Okay, cool. So I'll take some notes as we go. So if you see me looking down, writing, I might just be taking a few notes. And why don't you give us like a starting point, just an idea of where you are, and then from there we'll start to create like what might you want to create over, and we're going to use a time frame of a year. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So where are you at right now, life wise?
Life wise, right now, my life is in a pretty great spot in the sense that I have a home. I love where I live. I'm feeling in really good health. I'm married, got some dogs that I love. So, life in all is great. The not great part was that I was laid off from my job in April. I actually didn't even see it as a bad thing at the time because I saw it as possibility, opportunity. And then I had 4 months to figure out, okay, what can I do here? What can I create? And now here we are, and it's still feeling like I don't know what's next. I
Mm.
don't know. I've got some interviews lined up. I have a consulting business that I started last year. I have one client that's a regular client. I have one client that I did one project for. Then I have a couple other clients that potential clients. There's some opportunity there. All the while, there is this deep seated dream to open up a food business and to work with food because that's where my past was. Prior to getting into the corporate world, I was in restaurants for many years, basically my whole life. And I really love managing businesses, managing products.
Hmm.
But yep, that's where I am right now. Not really sure what the future holds, but staying optimistic.
Yeah, cool. Let's find out. What did you do before? Like, what was the job you were working before you were laid off?
I was a scrum master.
Ah, yes, for software.
Yeah, it was actually cybersecurity.
Ah, cool. Wow, that's an interesting. On the one hand, I can see how it would make total sense to want like an agile process for
Mm-hmm.
something as fast moving, and then at the other end of things, I could see how someone might want to like really have like a great deal of certainty in their
Mm-hmm.
processes. So, interesting. That must have been a fascinating area to be working in.
Yeah, it was
Cool,
definitely.
and not at all related to food, really.
No, but I realized once I started becoming a scrum master that when I reflected back on my time managing this small restaurant, that I was like, man, I've always been a scrum master
Hmm.
because in a little restaurant, as the manager, you're not the team, you're not doing the work of the team. You're there to coach the team, motivate them. You're also focused on the customer to make sure that they're getting the greatest experience, and you're serving the owner of the business, meeting their needs. So it was kind of the same. I saw a parallel.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's I mean, we'll start with a wide open question, which is like, let's imagine it's a year from now. What would be like just an absolutely unbelievably amazing result? Like, where would you want to be a year from now if everything worked?
Okay, so not the realistic result, but
Yeah.
all right, then a year from now, I would be owning or managing 3 to 5 businesses.
Okay.
I would have freedom and flexibility throughout my day, very similar to how I have that freedom and flexibility now. It would allow me to spend time with my family when needed. I wouldn't be tied down to any particular job. I would get to choose. The way I see it is on any given day, I might go to one of my businesses, whether I own it or I'm managing it, whatever that looks like. But I would go there to check in, see how things are going. Um, and then maybe on a different day, I go check in with a different business. And I'm basically just working with that small portfolio.
Mm. And what does it matter what these businesses are doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
What are they doing?
Uh, they are serving the community in some way. For example, the client that I have right now is a gym owner. And to me, that's really important: health, fitness, wellness. So I am motivated to help her succeed. Like, I want to be engaged in her business. I like working for her because I think she's got such a great business that's benefiting the community. I want to see that thrive. So I would be working with businesses that I see as benefiting the community in some way.
Okay. So serving the community is a requirement, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sound like it doesn't sound important to you that they would be doing anything in a particular domain or anything like that. Like a software company could be serving a community, or a funeral home, or a car garage or something. Like all of these would fit the bill.
No, probably more health and wellness. Like the
Hmm.
gym is fitness, then something that I want to create for myself, that restaurant would be healthy food and getting healthy food more accessible to people. Like when I look around my community, it's difficult for me to find places where I think the menu is really good. Like I'm very critical about local restaurants
I
because
bet.
I think it's all a little bit of the same, and it's hard to find a place where you're like, oh yeah, this is actually really good healthy food and it's not breaking the bank, it's not overly expensive. Like, $12 for a piece of toast with avocado on it just seems crazy.
I was just in Vegas and it was $8 for a cup of coffee. I was like, holy cow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, so involved in health and wellness to some extent, businesses 3 to 5, you're managing them. I've got that
Mm-hmm.
part right.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. And I'll cut from time to time, not really cut, but like just to speak to our audience or those listening after the fact. So, what we're doing right now at this point in the conversation is we're just getting a general overview of like what Kacie wants, what's important to her. And I'm listening for both like any specifics that seem important, as well as any places where we're kind of lacking specifics.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll say one of the ways that we pull ourselves back from possibility is by keeping things vague. So people will say things like, I want to be working in like a business making a big impact. And then we'll be like, great, doing what? I don't care, just making a big impact. Okay, like it makes nuclear waste. That's a big impact. So the specific brings us closer to the edge of the boundary of where we stop. So that's part of why we're looking there with Kacie. So
Can I add one more thing?
please, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I know I was talking about fitness and health. That's definitely the core
Mm-hmm.
of where I want to focus. But then there's animals. Like another just piece of who I am is I love animals. That's part of the reason why I'm fostering. I like to volunteer at the animal shelter. I see a problem there with the amount of dogs that come into the shelter that don't have space. And so that's something else that I would want to be involved in some way, is helping to solve that problem.
Mm. Got it. Okay, so food-based, health-based, animals, community-based. These are kind of the things you would really want to be managing as far as business. Excuse
Yeah.
me, as far as businesses are concerned. Why don't I just burp right into the mic? Okay. And then when you said freedom and flexibility, what does that mean? I get the concept of it, but
Well, when you work for somebody else, they say you have to work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you have to be, in a certain location or staring at a computer screen. And I don't dislike work. I love work, but maybe on Monday I want to do one type of work, or maybe I want to spend some time volunteering and I want the flexibility to say, I'm going to work early this Monday. Maybe I'm going to work 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then I'm going to go do something else in the afternoon. Maybe I'm going to take a Tuesday off. Maybe I'm working all day Saturday. It's just me being able to have control over my schedule, deciding when I work and when I don't work.
got it. Okay, so you get to pick and choose kind of like your hours, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even your days to that extent.
Yeah.
So it sounds a lot
Mm-hmm.
like you're not beholden to any one particular person. Okay.
Yeah. And I can jump around. Like I said, if I need to go to one location to help them out with something that's going on, and maybe that's what I'm doing on one day, but then the next day I'm in a different location helping somebody else out.
Got it. Okay. So when you say you're managing these business, are you like the owner managing them, or are you more like a consultant supporting, like a coach or consultant, whatever, supporting these businesses, or does it matter?
I don't know that it matters. I know that the food business I would own. Like I want to own that one. That's
Uh-huh.
mine. I own it. I don't want to be operating it day in and day out. Not
Okay.
saying that I wouldn't during growth. Of course I would do what's necessary during growth, but the ideal situation would be that I don't necessarily operate it, but that is my space that I've created in the community. And then the other companies, maybe I'm part owner, maybe I am just a consultant. That part isn't really as important. I just want to be able to help the owners or managers make strategic decisions to improve the business.
Got it. Okay. So you may not even have a share in the company or anything like that. It might be more sort of like a consulting kind of job. That's a possibility here.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. What would you want to be making doing this over the course of a year?
Right now, my more realistic goal is that I've already set is $200,000 a year, which
Mhm.
is just enough to cover my previous income plus a little bit. And, but then, of course, a bigger vision would be as much is necessary to be able to serve in the way that I feel called to. For example, if there's an animal shelter that needs to be built, I don't know how much that costs. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if I need to make hundreds of thousands of dollars so that I can support that, then that's what I would want to do. I guess I'm not one of those people who wants to just say, yeah, I mean, I'd love to make millions of dollars because it seems very abstract. I don't have a set use for it at the moment, but I
Mhm.
do know that I can set a goal at $200,000 that is realistic and achievable.
Okay, so it sounds like 200,000 would be kind of the goal for this year.
Hmm.
Okay, got it. Okay, and then so how many hours would you want to be working? Let's say a week, ideally.
Um, let's say 4 to 6 hours a day, uh, 5 to 6 days a week. Let's see. Okay, what's that? 5 times 5, 20. So I'd say between like 30 and 40 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty standard, but like
Yeah.
maybe on
Standard.
the lower side as opposed to on the higher side.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, I would like to work like 30 hours a week. But I kind of hesitate to say that because then, I feel like kind of like what you're talking about before, there's this idea that you have to work hard and work a lot of hours. Everyone always says, if you're going to go into business, expect to work, early in the morning to late at night. I'm
Hmm.
not afraid of doing that. I'm not unwilling to do that when necessary, but that's not the ideal
Hmm.
situation.
So ideally, you'd want to get to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. A lot of people, in the coaching profession say you have to charge what the market will pay you. And
Mhm.
that's why I find a lot of coaches make about $6,000 a year because they're charging what they believe the market will pay them. And then this isn't just coaching, but it's especially prevalent in coaching. And then, things go the way they go. So we have to ask for what we want in order to get it, even if it means we might have to do things differently while we're, en route to get there. So, okay, got it. So we've got 30 hours a week, $200,000 a year. You're managing 3 to 5, or like kind of you have a share, or you're helping, or you're managing on some level 3 to 5 businesses, and one of which you are the owner of.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm curious as we're talking about this, what's showing up for you?
Um, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to say nothing is showing up because I'm sure there is something that's showing up, but it just feels to me like something that I've thought about a lot
Mm-hmm.
recently, at least. I feel pretty confident that that's what I would like.
Uh-huh.
Uh, there is the question of how, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a lot of advice out there would say, you can't do everything. You have to choose one thing and put all your focus in on one thing. And that ties me up sometimes because I wonder what is that one thing, like out of all the things that I want to do, how do I funnel that down into one focus that's like my brand?
Mhm. So, okay, so there's sort of like how you've thought a
Mm-hmm.
lot about that vision, but the how is showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And also the how do you narrow it down, or like we haven't fully dissected that yet, but that is also showing up. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I'm going to talk to our audience for a moment here. The reason I want to know what's showing up for Kacie as we explore this is twofold. One is because if we're exploring something that she already knows how to achieve, it's already like set, she's got a handle on it and whatever, then it's probably not going to drive much up for her for us to be in a conversation about it. It's sort of like, yeah, what's showing up is that I need to go and apply to management school, and then I need to do that for a year, and then I need to approach 5 businesses, and I need to get 3 of them on board, and then I need to blah, 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 blah. So what's showing up tells us how we like where are we in terms of the realm of possibility versus something that's entirely predictable. The second reason I want to find out what's showing up is because whatever begins to show up for Kacie teaches us a little bit about her relationship to possibility, and all of us have a relationship to possibility. So for me, what happens is when I start to really set a goal that's way out in the wide open field of possibility, what starts to show up for me is like, one, a lot of concern about how I'm going to achieve it. Then what starts to show up is a need to get like really busy. Like I want to start moving so I can move through that concern. And then 3, slowly what starts to show up is some apathy. Like, fuck it. Is it even going to work anyhow? Is it even going to matter? Is there even going to make a difference? And then very quickly, I start to put it aside. Not immediately, but that stuff starts to show up. And that's how I know I'm actually playing impossibility. That stuff all pushes me back towards the safety of staying with what I know, staying riding the horse that I'm already good at riding rather than shifting or adding in something new. So that's why we're asking that question. It helps us check where we are in this journey together.
Can I
Any,
can I
yeah,
add
please.
something else?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the other piece of it is that with the food business, the piece that I want to actually own, I have
Mm-hmm.
a very clear idea of the how. Like
Mm.
it's laid out, I know exactly what I would do, how I would go from square one to end goal. I wouldn't just be jumping out to purchase a retail location to open up a shop. That's not what I would do. So I have all that planned out on how to do it,
Yeah.
but I don't see how that would earn me the money that I need. Like there's this immediate need to earn a certain amount of money. It doesn't have to be $200,000 right now, but
Mm-hmm.
there is an immediate need to earn something to just simply cover my expenses,
Uh-huh.
to just cover, like, I've got a little bit saved up to help me through.
Yeah.
But at some point very soon, I need to be bringing in some sort of income. And I don't see how that food business is going to earn that kind of income immediately.
Uh-huh.
It's something that I see would have to grow over time, which is why I'm feeling the need to push my focus in onto either getting another job, just getting back out there and getting another job, even if it might not be exactly what I want. If I have to do it, I have to do it, or getting more clients through my consulting business.
Uh-huh. Got it. Uh-huh. So make sure that I understood that. So there's sort of like one, you're not clear how this food business in particular would necessarily make the money that you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're kind of looking like, well, do I take these other approaches? Is that
Mm-hmm.
about right?
Yeah.
Got it. Well, where do you think we should go from there?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Where should we go from here?
Well, the good news is there's no right answer. There's just
Mhm.
a place to choose. So there's sort of like we can look at we can continue to build out this vision for this business that you want to
Mhm.
run. You talked about like not being clear on how to funnel down, sort of like where to start.
Mhm.
You also talked about like what there might be to do in the interim, whether it is to just like lean fully into this food business or something else. So
Mhm.
those are some of the things that are on the table, but I want to check with you and follow your wisdom here rather than like dictate a path for us, because you're the one we really want to kind of align with.
Yeah, I guess then just what would be the best next step? I mean, like, of course I guess where I've already started taking steps is, let me just hang tight on that food thing because I
Mm-hmm.
know it's always going to be there, and let's dive more into the consulting, or I'm still applying to jobs, I'm still going through that process. uh, I guess my question is always, am I trying to do too many things, or would it be better to just focus in on one area?
Mm. Is that kind of like a familiar experience for you, like being in that? Am I trying to do too many things, or maybe even feeling like you're trying to do too many things?
Oh, yeah. Like when I first started down this path a few months ago, I had probably a handful of open ended projects.
Uh-huh.
I have since closed off or completed some of those, most of them. And so it's like I'm constantly like funneling in, and this is where we're left with. Uh, I guess there's that fear that if I just go back to getting another job that's safe,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'll get the income, but is it really going to be fulfilling? And then will I have the time to do these other things? Because what I really want is to own my time, own my own business. And so I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So let me speak broadly to our audience as well, as this will be for you as well. But like, so the thing about the conversation for possibility, some of you listening may feel like this urge to like, Adam, just like go into the how, or like give the advice, or like she just needs to X, Y, and Z, which is part of what stops us from staying present to possibility. Because when we get into the how, we stop getting present to what's possible in our vision, and we get lost in the weeds of it. And this conversation is a challenging one to stay in with someone, because possibility is never it's never a conversation where we're figuring out how to get somewhere. It's simply a conversation of getting really, really clear on what's available if we were to arrive there. And the reason that that's so valuable is I like to think of this image that one of my teachers, Christopher, used to share with me, which is this: on the one side, you've got you. On the other side, you've got this beautiful pot of gold, or he called them the Elysian fields, like everything you could desire, your greatest dreams. And in the middle, you've got a wall. And the wall represents the how, the stuff we have to do to get over it. And what happens as humans is we look at the wall in front of us and we get stuck on it. And then we start to be like, oh man, if I want to get that thing, I've got to figure out how to get over this wall. And then we start looking at the wall and we look at the grout between the bricks. And then we start looking at the height. And then we start thinking like, man, I got to get like climbing shoes and this and that. And as we do this, we lose sight of our vision for what we really want. And all we start to see is the wall. And eventually the wall just becomes, it looms so large in our mind that we say, fuck it, and we move on. And so what we're doing in a conversation for possibilities, we're not solving anything, which might be something Kacie is hearing, much to her dismay at this point. She might be like, fuck, I thought we were going to solve this. Instead, we're just getting really present on what would be available if that vision were to come to fruition. Because in this transformational work, we trust that like before anything can happen, we have to have that vision looming very large for us. And it's naturally going to fall away anyhow as time goes on. So we want to get it really juicy, because that has us then kind of willing to tackle the wall. And we are all so much more resourceful than we realize. I can already tell you, like just listening to Kacie, that she's super resourceful and can figure that stuff out, provided we can keep that vision present and not have it break out into like a million different smaller visions, whatever the strategy might be. So what do you hear when I say that, Kacie? Or maybe even not what do you hear, but like what shows up for you?
That this is a coaching call and you're not going to give me any answers. I have to figure it all out myself. But I also heard you say that, like, something about keeping the vision intact. And maybe that's an area that is tough, because, like, a lot of the advice that I hear is like, do that one thing and do it really, really, really well. That's how you're going to break through to be able to do all these other things. And I like when everyone out there who are experts
Yeah.
are saying this, you're like, okay, that's probably the
Seems like
right
good
thing to
advice.
do. Seems like good advice. But then, like, how does that get me to that vision that
Uh-huh.
I'm seeing that sort of has multiple, couple different pieces to it? I don't think it's really that, I don't think it's really that crazy. Like, owning, managing a handful of businesses, they might be sort of different, but, a restaurant, a gym, maybe two or three other ones. It could be also a restaurant, might be another
Uh-huh.
gym, whatever it might be. But yeah, I guess that's kind of where I feel stuck. Like, what is that? What is that piece to like get me to there?
What is that? So, okay, well, let's just take a moment to look at that. So you say like, what is that piece to get me to there? What is the gap? Like, what is the piece? What I guess I'm asking is like, if there's a piece you need to get you there, what is that gap that that piece would fill? Do you need me to elaborate on the question?
Maybe.
Yeah. So imagine someone said like, I'm trying to figure out what's the solution. Can you explain to me what the problem is that you would need a solution for?
Okay.
Does that make more
Um,
sense?
Let me just say, I guess there's this piece of like if I really want to own and manage the restaurant first, I mean, that's the ideal goal. Like that's the thing I care about the most.
Yeah.
But then I feel like I have to go through this other avenue to get there. And so like to me that seems like a problem. Like I should just be focusing in on the one area of if I want to build a restaurant. But then I don't know that that's gonna. I know it'll bring in money eventually,
Hmm.
but not right now when I
Hmm.
need it. Yeah,
Right.
so that's the
So,
problem.
so what is the like? I got what you shared, but how is that a problem?
uh, I don't know. I guess the problem is that I need to find a way to earn the income that I need right now while also getting to that end state.
Hmm. And what is problematic about that?
I guess I wish I had, I guess I just wish I had the flexibility to just do the one thing that I want instead
Uh-huh.
of feeling like I have to do these other things as a necessity.
So is it a problem just because you don't want to, or like something different?
I I don't know. I guess maybe I want to make sure that I'm not like losing sight of this thing that I really want to do in my efforts to go down another route. But it doesn't matter what route I go down, I want to be able to give it my 100%. So if I'm going to go down, like, let's say I got a job.
Yeah.
If I got that job, I'm going to give my all to that job because that's what I do. I like to be really good at what I do. So I
Hmm.
would show up, I would give them the best of me that they hired me for. I would crush it, but then I might lose sight of these other things that I really want. And then ultimately, where would that leave me? If I go down this consulting route, which I'm already journeying down,
Hmm.
there's a lot of uncertainty there. There's like feelings of being inexperienced, even though I know that I have the knowledge and skills to do what needs to be done. There's like, I need to learn how to sell myself better. I need to brand myself in that area. But then if I do that, am I branding myself in a way that separates me from, once again, this other dream? So I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing a good job at describing the problem.
No, no, you're
Maybe there
doing
is no
great.
problem.
You're doing great. I'm just asking you, like, can you bottom line it? So can you, what we're in right now, as far as I'm hearing, is like kind of a process of distilling this down so you can get clear for yourself. Like, hey, what is the crux of the problem? So if you were to bottom line that, how would you describe that problem?
Being unsure about which direction to go, maybe.
Hmm. Okay.
Or maybe like not being able to fully commit to one area for fear of losing something else.
I see. Okay. So just for everyone watching, what we're sometimes as we explore possibility, we can get into like the weeds a little bit. That's where we are right now. So what I'm doing with Kacie is just exploring this to see like what's actually here, and then we're going to see where this leads us to. So if you're kind of like, boy, where are we going to go? Me too. And Kacie as well is also feeling that way. So it's all good. That's part of this journey is as we're exploring this stuff with people, we really want to be open to wherever it leads us, as opposed to having like a clear direction. We're going to lead her here. I have a rough idea where we might end up, but like I'm letting Kacie be the one leading us through what she's sharing. Sound all right, Kacie?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
cool. So you might lose sight of what you want. You might have a lack of certainty. Does that sound about right? Okay. And is that familiar
Yeah.
for you? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Lack of certainty, but then maybe also just there's also the fear of being too inexperienced. Like that's definitely something that I think I'm
Hmm.
trying to overcome
Uh-huh.
because I know what I'm worth. I know what I can do, but I, you look at all these other successful people, they've got handfuls of testimonials, people
Yes.
saying, look at all these amazing things that this person did for me. I'm sure I could come up with some, like, I guess I could get resourceful and find some people, but to me, it would feel more authentic if I actually had, like, in my mind, legitimate clients. Like, right now, I have two clients that I have actually done paid projects for that
Yeah.
I could get testimonials from to say, okay, they're saying that I have produced some result for them.
Yeah.
Therefore, you should trust me. Um, but then it feels like, well, how do I get those testimonials if I don't have the testimonials? Like that feeling of just being, when you're starting out, maybe you feel like you're a little inexperienced.
Got it. Okay. So also feeling a little inexperienced with all of this.
Yeah,
Okay. And and are those familiar kind of sticking points for you?
probably like when you say familiar sticking points, like something that I've experienced throughout my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or at least that you can look
Oh,
back and be like, yeah, I felt that way this way, and then I can see it here, and I can see it here.
yeah, yeah. Basically, when I was working in the restaurant industry, I felt like a badass.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there's no one better than me. I mean, not to be like, I don't want to come off like super arrogant, but
Right.
when you're good at your job, like I knew I was really good. If I was serving a table, if I was bartending, if I was managing, well, managing is a little tougher. I'm not going to sit here and say I was the best manager at the time because I've learned a lot since then. But overall, I think I was pretty good. But I just felt like I had reached my capacity in that industry and there wasn't anywhere for me to grow at the moment.
Uh-huh.
So I transitioned. I said, I want something different. I want to transition out of this. And I did. So everything from that point on has felt like I feel like every job that I went into, except for maybe the last job. The last job that I went into, I felt pretty confident. But the two before that, I was going in like, I'm smart. I'm good in these areas. I can learn. That was
Uh-huh.
always my like I can learn. It doesn't matter what it is, I can learn. When I went into my first cybersecurity job, I did not know anything about cybersecurity, but I did. I learned it within a few months.
So
And
are you coming to an answer to the question I
but
asked?
yeah, the answer I guess is like yes, I have felt inexperienced many times
Okay.
in recent years
Okay.
in the more corporate world.
And this fear of like losing sight of what you want or like not staying on track, is that something that's a familiar fear for you?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just like I don't want to spend forever not really knowing what,
Uh-huh.
I guess, something that I have actually struggled with a lot is figuring out what it is that I want. Like, what do I
Right.
actually want?
Uh-huh.
I think I was able to give you something here today because I have been working on that a lot. But up
Yeah.
until recently, if you asked me a few months ago, I might be like, I don't know. I don't know what I really want. I want everything. I want a million different things.
How do you imagine this fear would stop you going towards this goal you have? Like, what would happen as a result of having this fear, predictably?
I would not push forward when things got tough,
What would
maybe.
you do instead?
I I mean, maybe I start into something, I fail, and then instead of continuing to push forward, I mean, you want to, okay, well, if this isn't working, maybe this isn't the right thing for me. Maybe this isn't really what I want because it's not really working. So then let me try this over here. And even though I know that you have to push through, because I have a lot of other experiences where I did push through. I did push through. I kept going, and I got to that end result. But I guess that's what could happen is I could start into something, maybe not get those immediate results that I'm looking for, feel like I'm not doing it right, and then instead of pushing through, say, well, maybe I should be doing this other thing.
Okay, so you'd like start down the path, hit maybe some obstacles, and then start to then that doubt of like, do I actually want this would creep in, and then like go
Hmm.
towards something else.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like going back to working a job. Like when I came out of my last job, I was very much like, okay, I don't want to go back to working for somebody else. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out a way to work for myself. And
Uh-huh.
now I feel like we're approaching that moment where it's like, okay, is this really possible? Is it possible for me to find a way to work for myself where I can actually make enough money to support my family?
Hmm. So if that fear of
Hmm.
not wanting like of not knowing what you want or not having chosen the right thing or not being on the right path, is that a fair way to kind of describe that? If that no longer showed up in your life, how would things be different?
I would have some, like, whatever it is that I'm working on, I would feel 100% dedicated to it. I would feel aligned to it, that this is what I need to be doing.
Hmm.
And it wouldn't really matter. I don't think it would matter how much money I was making, or like I would just figure it out. That
Hmm.
there would just be, and I mean, I kind of feel like that right now in a sense. Like I'm going towards something, and like that time limit is getting closer and closer, but I still have a lot of faith that I'm going to make something happen. I don't know what it is exactly, but I think that's what would be there if those fears weren't present. Is like, I don't know, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, let's say I wanted to create some kind of software company, and that's what it is. And I decided like I would just be all in on it. No one could tell me to stray from it. I would be like, this is it. It's going to work. We're going to do it. And I'd be fully committed to it.
What would that be like?
That would be awesome.
Okay. Anything more?
It
Would that have
would,
an impact in your life?
yeah, I would feel excited. I,
Okay.
I would probably work more than 30 hours a week,
Okay.
especially at the beginning.
Okay.
um, I would I would feel like what I'm doing has the potential to make a difference for somebody else. That would certainly fuel me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm. Uh, I don't know. I feel like I would just be motivated to do all of the things that are required to see that through to success.
Let me check in with you. How
Mhm.
would you say this conversation is going?
It's tough. It's
Uh-huh.
tough.
Yeah, I feel that
Yeah.
too. Can you elaborate? Like, can you describe more on what feels tough?
Like I guess maybe you come into a conversation with trying to be open, maybe not too many expectations, but the only expectation was, okay, we're going to discuss possibility. And I'm like, okay, maybe we'll come up with some kind of breakthrough that I take from this and I leave and I go, aha, that's it. That's what needs to be happening next. Whereas it's kind of like, oh yeah, like we're kind of just getting into the weeds of where we are, and then I'm almost questioning, like, gosh, like, do I really know what I want?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm feeling that too. So let me speak to them first and then come back to you. So like sometimes when we're exploring possibility, we're gonna find ourselves pulled back to like the nitty gritty or the how. And this is part of the art of coaching is that we can't force any one conversation. So like with Kacie, for example, we could be exploring like, the way if we were to really play on this would be to look at like what tends to get in your way, Kacie, and then we would find that out. And then I'd be asking, like, imagine if we moved that out of the way, how would your whole life transform? How would your life be different if that wasn't there? So that's the question I've been starting to ask. But you can feel Kacie's kind of pulling back. It's sort of like, and now I'm going to speak to you, Kacie. It's almost like there's a part of you that's like, yeah, but how? Like really wants to like, but how do we do that? Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. So there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to distinguish it, right? Like that's in the space for us. So it's for everyone watching, we're getting kind of pulled a bit away from the conversation about possibility, more to like, yeah, but how? Or like the immediate thing. And that's okay. Sometimes that's how this goes. So that's why I checked in with Kacie because I'm like, huh, it feels really like we're kind of I don't want to feel like I'm pulling her through the mud because that's not going to serve her. And sometimes when we're in a conversation like this, we have to recognize like, oh, maybe possibility is just not quite so available. And we have to like set that aside for a moment and then meet the client wherever they are. So let's say we had another 15 minutes, Kacie, and we didn't have
Hmm.
any agenda other than what would most serve you in this moment. What would be like the best use of that time, do you think?
uh I would say maybe helping me uncover more about what it is that is standing in my way, because like at the end of the day, I feel like we're all standing in our own way.
Hmm.
It's there is something about me, the way I'm
Uh-huh.
being, that is keeping me from getting to the place that I want to be.
Okay.
And what is that? Is that, and then maybe just reassurance of like, yeah, you're just going to have to do one thing. You're just going to have to focus in on that area, or I don't know.
Where is it that you want to be? So I got you want to figure out what's standing in the way of where you want to be. Where do you want to be?
I want to be in that place where, like I said, I have that flexibility. I have a couple different businesses that I'm engaged with,
Uh-huh.
one that I own. Like that's where I want to
Okay.
be in that place where I have access to resources to serve others, to help others. Like
Okay.
I've built, yeah. Go ahead.
So well, there's a bunch of different things I hear there. There's like having serving a bunch of different people, but then there's also having access to resources.
Mhm.
And then there's like time and flexibility. So does that feel really clear to you? It occurs a little nebulous over here.
I guess I'll just go back to what I described in the beginning, where like I said, I want to build this restaurant. It's something that I feel is missing in our
Mhm.
community. I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I feel like it's not feasible in the immediate moment,
Okay.
which is leading me to, okay, well, if it's not feasible right now, if it's not going to earn you that income that you need right now, then you need to do something else that is going to earn you that income. right
Okay.
now, so that you can maybe in some time you can start working on it on the side. You can still do that thing that you want to do, but you have to do something that's going to earn you the income today.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So which there's sort of like I hear kind of like two options.
Mm-hmm.
Which which are you wanting to, because in order to figure out what's in your way, you have to choose one of those two places so that then we can see what's in the way of you achieving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Well, then I guess what I've chosen then is to pursue the consulting
Okay.
as a means of earning the income that I need,
Okay.
with the idea that, like, once I have a couple of clients or however many I need to cover my expenses, earn what I need to do, that will then allow for me to spend time building this other thing.
Okay. And do you
I
feel,
guess,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
good. I was just gonna say, I guess there's like this fear that if I commit, like I feel like I would have to commit 100% towards, like if I'm gonna do the consulting, you have to commit 100% towards it.
Why is that?
But then you said why?
Hmm.
Is that you're asking why?
Yeah, you said
Oh,
it, you like why is that the case? You're saying if I'm going to do the consulting, I have to commit 100% towards it. How come?
I don't know. I feel like you have to commit to what you set out to do in order for it to be successful. I wouldn't want to half-ass something if I'm working with a client. I,
Well, do you work 24 hours a day?
no,
How come?
because I need to sleep.
Okay. So I'm not putting something into space to like prove a point, but I'm just curious, like it seems like you have space to both work and sleep. And I imagine like raise dogs and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So why is so there it's possible to like have a job, sleep, raise dogs, eat food, have fun. Those
Mhm.
things can coexist. Why is it
Mhm.
that consulting cannot coexist with like building this like dream of a restaurant?
I guess in my mind it can, but then I feel like what I said before is like all the advice out there is like, you gotta, if you want to be successful in a particular area, like you have to go 100% into that one area, find your niche, find your thing that you're going to be an expert at,
Is
and
that
be an
advice
expert
helping
at
you?
uh, like in some ways, yes. Like in building a consulting business, it is helpful advice, because if you're a consultant, you don't want to be a consultant that does anything. You want to be a consult, like you do transformational leadership.
Hmm.
That's very specific. So people know that that's what Adam does, and that's your brand. So like if I'm going in that route, it is helpful for that, but it's not so helpful in the sense that like maybe I want to do a couple different things at a time.
Yeah. So here's what I'm hearing is sort of like one, it's not, it's becoming sort of clear what you want, which it sounds like you want to build a consulting business while kind of putting some attention on this restaurant on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I don't have a like right way for you to do things personally, but I'm more interested in what does Kacie want? How do we support her to achieve that? So if that's the thing you want, okay, great. But what I notice is that it's almost like what you want keeps coming into conflict with the advice you're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're sort of like, I want this, but I can't have it. But I want it, but I can't have it. And then that seems to be where you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you might have to make a choice one way or the other. Like so, either you're gonna you're gonna come from the place like, hey, it's possible to do this, and I'm gonna lean into that possibility where I build my consulting business and I devote a bit of time. I don't know, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, day on the weekend. You get to choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Towards it. Or you might be like, I'm going to align myself with the advice and see how that goes. And I'm going to build fully into my consulting practice and then figure out what I want to do from there. But where I'm seeing you're getting stuck is you're kind of caught at this choice point and then sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate to where you find yourself?
Yeah. Like it feels like I'm supposed to make a choice one way or the other, but I don't really want to abandon one or the other.
Mm-hmm. So when I got into this career, I was working as a lawyer, an articling student, which is effectively a lawyer, but you have a lawyer sort of overseeing your work so you don't ruin someone's legal livelihood. And that's a crazy amount of hours that you have to work. It's a ludicrous job. You're doing everything under the sun. You're running everywhere. And it made no sense at all for me to try to build a coaching business on the side. It was completely nonsensical. All of the advice I got was don't do that. And my parents were part of that advice. They were like, finish law school, get a job as a lawyer, work off your debt, and then you can build this coaching practice on the side. And there was a part of me that was like, that sounds horrible. And I'm pretty certain that if I do that, this part of me that wants to create this other thing will die. It's just an intuitive feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked a lot with my coach, and she was like, well, what do you want? And I was like, I want to build the coaching business. And so I would do that. I would work these ridiculous hours. I'd go to work at 6 a.m. and I'd leave 4 or 5 o'clock at night. I'd come home, I'd stuff food in my face, and then I'd be on coaching calls for like 3 hours or trying to generate business or whatever. I don't know how I did it. It was a lot. But over time, my coaching business built. And then I said at the end of this year of articling, I said, I'm going to move on and I'm going to fully put myself into this. And I'm going to see if I can either get this airplane up or I'm going to smash into the mountain. And that's just going to be what I'm going to do. First question for you is, why do you think I'm sharing that story?
Because you're showing me that you can do two things at one time.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's a takeaway. Anything else you hear for yourself in that?
That you had to work a lot of hours in the beginning. Yeah. That you didn't want the thing that you really wanted to do die. Is there something else I was supposed to take away from it?
No, there's nothing really you were supposed to take away from it. I'm just curious what you'd hear from that. So the thing I notice overall is would it be fair to say there's a part of you that's like, in this moment, Adam, give me the answer. But in other moments, it'd be like, whoever is in front of me, give me the answer. Or like, world, give me the answer. What am I supposed to do? Would that be fair?
Probably.
Uh-huh. And what do you notice happens with the answer you're getting, which is like the advice you're receiving?
Like right now or just in general?
Yeah, the latter, in general.
A lot of times it's like, it makes sense. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds really great. Like, let's do it. And then sometimes it's like, well, that's not what this other person said.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and what I notice is, again, it keeps you stuck at the choice point. You're like, but then these people are telling me, and it seems to like muddy you further. Is that fair?
Probably. Yeah.
So my sense is giving you one more answer is not going to really make the difference. And I think like what I can see is you're kind of at a place where you're going to have to make a choice one way or the other. And like every choice, there's consequences, right? Like the consequence to the choice I made, it wasn't the right choice. If I had stayed in law and then I'd maybe made it over to coaching or whatever, who knows? Like, who knows how things would have unfolded? Given the choice I made, my parents had a lot of thoughts and feelings that they were happy to share with me about what I was doing. And it was really challenging for a while. And now I get to be here 12 years later. So the thing I would just put in front of you is, it seems like the thing in your way is not an answer, it's a choice to be made.
Okay.
How's that sitting with you?
It makes sense because, I have sort of during this time, like I said, I have these 4 months, I have done a lot of reaching out. Even the company that I was leaving, they set you up with a mentor. They set you up with a coach. It is. It's
So
amazing.
cool.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I've got this career transition coach, and he's trying to help me out in one way. Then I have a friend or two here that I trust, and like they have their own perspective. So I feel like I have been taking in a lot of different perspectives. And I guess one thing that I can take from this call is, okay, Casey, you've taken all this perspectives. maybe you're done. Maybe you're done with that phase, and maybe now you just move forward with what you've learned and what feels right to you.
That's a beautiful takeaway. It's really
Yeah.
profound. How would it be for you to do something like that? Like to sort of, all right, I've taken everything in and I'm going to choose.
Probably pretty empowering, because it would make me feel like I'm a learner. I love to like take things in,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to give back. I want
Mm-hmm.
to share it out. So maybe it would just help propel me towards actually getting into that. Like, okay, I've taken in from all these different sources, and now, not no more taking in, because, you got to keep learning, but just now you get to share your perspective. Now you get to go out and help other people from your place. Not what this person said, not what that person said, but what does Casey think?
I imagine it might
So
be a little edgy.
probably.
Does that feel true? I don't want you to take it as what I'm offering, but really, like, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's scary.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely
Yeah.
scary.
I'll speak to this broadly and then we'll start to wind down. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one, we're trained by the world to like as a strategy, look to the answer out there
Mm-hmm.
around us. We're trained out of trusting ourselves. We're trained not to trust our internal self, right? Like, oh, I really want to be a hockey player. Well, you better look towards something that will make you money. Oh, okay, got it. Like that's just one of a billion examples. And people will say, but that's good advice because only a very small few people actually become a hockey player. But what they don't realize is that when that version of myself gets told, don't go after that, I can't discover that on my own. Like maybe what happens is I lean into being a hockey player and I'm like, this fucking sucks. You got to be up at 4 a.m. You got to skate. You got to do all this stuff. Okay, I'm going to do something adjacent. And we discover our path that way. Instead, what we're trained into is there's a right answer and we need to find the right answer. And if we find the right answer, then our path will be set for us. And so this becomes what our society does. And there's certain people that are extremely like capable of like bringing a lot of curiosity and like receptivity, such as yourself, Casey. You're like
Mm-hmm.
very, I imagine it makes you exquisite as like a project manager, much like I was. I was a scrum master too, very briefly.
Mm-hmm.
We're very good at receiving information, checking with everyone. Maybe not always so good at like making a final decision, which is why we're so good at pulling in all those answers. So then our strategy becomes perpetually to get more answers, and delay making the choice. The
Mm-hmm.
trouble with making a choice is it puts us on the line. And when we make a choice, things might not work out. But each time we make a choice, it moves us towards the next choice and the next choice. And that's how our path unfolds in front of us. So it's a really beautiful place you find yourself. And I can imagine for me I remember being in a similar place. It was really scary, really,
Mm-hmm.
really edgy. And like choosing down this career path was the hardest choice I ever made. And there was absolutely no guarantee it was going to work. The hilarious thing was like 6 months after it, like finally it was like, instead of money just flowing out of our bank account, I had a month where like we were even. It was
Mm-hmm.
the same month my wife came home and was like, I think I got to leave my job. I think I hate it. And I think I need to like do the same thing you're doing. I was like, oh man, we just got like, all right, great. We're going to do this. So anyhow, that's a different thing. So, so where you're at sounds like a beautiful place. There's like a way of being to step into, which is to step out of looking out there for the answer and to start to
Mm-hmm.
like lean into the answer here. How does that sit? Does that feel empowering?
Yeah.
What's showing up for you in
Yeah.
this moment? Tell me that.
Kind of like of course, Casey,
Uh-huh.
like, you I don't know. I don't want to feel like I've wasted anybody's time by like trying to like get in all these answers. But then you're saying you're like, oh well, yep, that's where I am, and I just gotta make a decision and go for it. It's these things. That's what you're supposed to do, but for some reason it's difficult.
Yes. Yeah. I would, here's a context as opposed to like wasting time. Like you should have been able to figure this out beforehand. You're right on time. You had to ask all of those people and even show up in this conversation looking for an answer for us to get here. So
Mm-hmm.
you're right on. This is the hard part about trusting ourselves. I forget this constantly. We're right on track. And so the hard part is to really trust, like, oh, I'm on schedule. I had to do all of that stuff to arrive at this point. Now I'm at this point. Now I can choose. Next time, I probably won't need to take as much time, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I'll forget it and then I'll require as much time. So it's really beautiful where you've arrived at. And like, it's all part of the journey. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh. So let's just do a little, we'll wind down, we'll do a little debrief. I'll acknowledge you and then we'll end the stream. I'll speak a little bit to everyone as well on like the journey of how we got here. So first, anything you're present to as we kind of come to a close? Anything about the whole session where you're like, I'm surprised, or this caught me off guard, or anything along those lines?
Like you said, it felt kind of rocky for a little bit, and I was thinking, gosh, man, am I doing this wrong?
Same.
But then to get to the end, I feel like there is that realization of like, well, maybe that's it. That's it. And it's the same thing that I think I've already known. And so it's kind of like, if let's say there's something about you that deep down, but you're kind of like, you ignore it.
Yes.
And then somebody else brings it up to the surface. And you're like,
yes.
You're bringing that up to the surface? Like, come on, I thought that didn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Uh-huh.
But now it's like, oh, yeah, no, that really does matter. That's probably pretty important. So it's good to be aware of it. It's good to be aware. Maybe something that I knew about myself, but was trying to not pretend, but like tell myself that, no, I'm not like that anymore. I am making decisions. I am moving forward. But then it's coming back up. It's like, okay, well, maybe this is something that I still need to work a little harder on.
Yes. Yeah, it's so great. It's like when we're in the realm of like a blind spot, the kind of flavor of it is often sort of like, what's the solution? Not that thing though. It's not this. So what's the solution? What is it I need to do? Don't tell me that. It's not that. And then, someone's like, I think maybe you should look at them. We're like, no, it's definitely not that. It's anything but that. Yeah. I know that experience so well. It's hilarious. And for what it's worth, like I said, like I had the same experience, like, do I suck? What's happening? What are we doing? And it was a little bit like, this is a great, like, I think this is a beautiful example of how we can't stay rigid in this kind of work, in coaching conversations that are going deep enough, because there was a part of you that really wanted an answer. And a conversation for possibility is one free from answers. It's just looking at like what could be available to us. And until that moment where I was like, how is this going? And we started to actually speak to what was happening, we would have been operating over top of that, right? You're very delightful and willing to play along with me. So you would have like sort of explored this possibility, but that part of you that was getting unmet would have been like, but what's the fucking answer? And we had to kind of like, okay, we've got to like abandon this track we're on and drop into this. So for everyone, it's not the picture perfect version of a possibility conversation, but it is a beautiful example here of like how we have to meet what's showing up in the moment always. And this is the case for any transformational conversation, coaching or leadership. You'll be like, we need to make this happen here. And then someone in your company will have like a particular breakdown, and you have to meet that breakdown. Not that this was a breakdown, but we have to meet what's showing up, because until we do, we're operating over top of it. And then you end up with like a carpet with a giant lump in the middle of it. Don't want to, we're perpetually stepping around this lump. That's just how our carpet looks. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to share. I think that was it. I think we might do another conversation on I might run another one just so that we can show people what it's like when that's available. But like I really love how this turned out, and oh, that's the other thing I was going to share is I find in coaching sometimes we have to have a bit of an experience of how things are for the client before we can distinguish it. So, like you, Kacie, in this conversation, I was like, this feels a bit tough. And it's sort of like, where are we meant to go? And like, what's the actual answer here? Which I imagine is kind of the very thing you're experiencing. Is that accurate?
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because we fall into the swirl of it with each other until I can kind of like get some altitude. And it was like, okay, what's going on here? And then once we had that, then we could start to make some motion. So it's so funny. Like that happens all the time where I'm just like, am I a jerk? Do I suck? Am I stupid? And I'm like, oh, this is the experience. Okay, great. We can kind of pull out of it. So it's cool. Thanks for being
Yeah.
my partner in this conversation that way.
You are welcome.
Okay. Anything you want to share about what you're up to? Anything you want people to know about you or to mention before we kind of wind down?
Yeah, I guess I just, in the spirit of being open and honest, I'm thinking of something else that
Mm-hmm.
came up, which is maybe a little bit of shame.
Mm.
Like, like, oh gosh, it's really that easy. Is that really what I'm doing? I'm out here just seeking answers and not making decisions. I don't like to swallow that, but it's useful to know.
Yes.
Um, and then outside of that, what people can know about me is uh, I'm here. I'm on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. I'm not big into social media because it just wasn't my thing, but I've always been present on LinkedIn. And look out, see what happens. I have a lot of plans, a lot of things that I want to do, and we'll just see where it goes, see what decisions I make coming out of this.
That's awesome. I love that. And you're interested if people have like thoughts, ideas,
Yeah,
collaborative things. I got a
sure.
restaurant. I would love to talk more, but like you're open to that sort of.
Open to, yes, and or even just feedback on this if you're like, oh, I've experienced that as well, or
Mm.
if you got anything from it, I'd love to hear. If you have feedback of any kind, well, you know what? I should probably stop going down that
Yeah, yeah,
route.
good. No advice. Don't try to
No
coach
advice.
Kacie. Yeah.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah. Yeah. But empathetic connection, that sort of stuff for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. That shame piece. Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for like
Mhm.
naming it. And that's that is so poignant, I think, because that's what stops us from touching this stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, I should already know this, or oh, it can't be that. And then once we see it, our blind spot is like literally like seeing where we've been unable to see for our whole life. It's so bright. And it's also often like that brightness we experience like shame or guilt or how could
Mhm.
I? And then we want to recoil away from it and put it back away. So like I
Yeah.
really acknowledge you, Kacie, for one, naming that, and two, it's profound that that feeling is there because it tells us, oh, we're touching something that's a bit tender. No wonder
Mhm.
it's been hidden. And it's this stuff is so easy in concept and theory, intellectually, like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, just make a choice. But when you make a
Mhm.
choice, it's like, fuck, I have to make a choice. And then once I make a
Mhm.
choice, shit will happen. And
Mhm.
so I just want to share, at least over here, zero judgment, complete understanding and empathy, and like, oh crap, I really get it. So
Yeah.
thanks for like how you showed up. Thanks for your authenticity. I want to acknowledge you, Kacie, for like um the incredible curiosity you are. And also like your one of the qualities of being I notice a lot in entrepreneurs is adventure. And I really
Mhm.
feel that in you. Just sort of like, hey, sure, I'll just reach out to Adam and see if he'll have me on. Oh, crap, we're in the middle of a conversation and it's going clunky. Like, okay, here I am. Like, you're
Yeah.
here for the whitewater raft ride of life. And that's a beautiful trait as like for an entrepreneur and anyone that's leading stuff, and also incredible trait for like an owner of dogs and just for like a partner. So thanks for all the adventure you are here in this conversation, but also everywhere else in your world.
Thank you. It's funny you say
Hmm.
that because I've done values exercises few times. I
Yeah.
did one recently, and curiosity has always been number one. That is very present, and also fun and adventure
Uh-huh.
came up.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
cool
that's cool.
because the neat
Yeah.
thing about this is like we lead with it without even being aware. So you exude it. That's who you'll be. Okay. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thanks. If you have questions, if you'd like to be on the podcast, especially if you're interested in a possibility conversation, I'll probably do a bonus one. So if you want to reach out, we can do a conversation like that. If you'd like to have a coaching conversation here, let me know. And also, if you want us to do a deep dive on any particular aspect of leadership, coaching, or anything like that for one of these shows, please let me know. Send me a message. You can write me on LinkedIn. You can email me, adam@adamquiney.com. And we'll catch y'all later. Have an amazing weekend. Okay, so now you stay there, Kacie. These people I'm going to say goodbye to. Boom. And then stream. Yes. Okay. And then these attendees, I'm going to boot. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. Yeah, you're getting removed. All right. No, I don't want a reporter. There we go. Cool. Thank you. Oh, and I'll stop this recording too. There we go.